New for 2023, the REI Flash 3 tent is meant to be a light and spacious option for 2 to 3 people without breaking the bank. Hi, my name is Clay from Terra Outdoor Adventures. I'll take you through this first look and my first impressions for this new tent. Alright, and just to quickly show you what comes with the tent, obviously you have the tent stuff sack, you have the tent body, the tent rainfly. This is a 3-pole tent, so this is the yellow pole or the gold pole that goes over the head. This is what REI calls the long pole. This is a Y hub design, and it goes over the foot box and creates the main top ridge line. And this is the spreader pole. This is the one that goes over the top horizontally, just to make sure you have enough headroom. You have 8 of these DAC aluminum V-stakes. The stakes are DAC aluminum and the poles are DAC aluminum, so you know it's really good quality. 8 of these stakes. And then you also do have these guy lines with the tension adjusters. There's 4 of them that come with it. I have 2 of them already installed on the door, so you'll see that in just a second. So there's the extra 2. And here is the footprint. Footprint does not come included with the tent. It is a separate purchase, but the footprint is what you see everything laid out on here. So that's everything that comes in the box. So as you can see, this is a 3-pole design tent. It's a bit of a unique structure. There is the Y pole, this black pole that goes at the foot. REI calls that the long pole, like I said. That clips into these 2 clips here at the foot, goes across and forms the main ridge of the pole. You also have the gold pole that I showed you. That's the head pole. That just clips into the 2 yellow corners at the head. And then there is this really unique sort of coupling system where the gold pole clips into the black pole. The black pole has this little stopper ridge on it that keeps it from going too far out the other side, and then everything has metal grommets that it connects into. All corners of the tent have metal grommets. The spreader bar has metal grommets, and the peak pole has a metal grommet as well, so everything is nice and secure. So this is the tent fully set up. Overall, the design is pretty nice. The only things that I think are a little bit funky is that right here, this spreader bar does not have any sort of clip or anything to attach here. REI does specifically state in the instructions that the spreader bar is supposed to go over this top black ridge bar, but it's weird to me that there's no clip, because I have seen that there's a lot of give. You can go either way, and once you have the rainfly on and it's tensioned, this is just sort of loose. Not a big deal. Only other thing that I can say that I think is a bit funny or a bit weird is right here. It's kind of hard to tell, but there's a bit of this mesh that is a little kind of crimped up. It's not anything to where I'm worried about the integrity of the tent, but there are just a couple little spots. Those 2 on that first door, this one there. There is a spot up here on the top as well. There's one right there, and then another one right there. I'm not super worried about it. It's potentially a failure point down the road, but as far as the tent goes, it still seems pretty nice. I do like the design. It gives almost vertical sidewalls because of that spreader bar, and this head bar almost has a totally vertical wall as well, which gives a lot of really great interior space. So let's check out the inside of the tent. Okay, so now we are on the inside of the tent. Just to go over some sort of dimensions, REI states this is a 40.94 square foot tent. That is 88 inches long, 70 inches wide at the head, and then 64 inches here at the foot. So some people would argue that for being a 3-person tent, this is not really a true 3-person, since if you wanted to have 3 25-inch wide pads in here, well, you just couldn't. And honestly, 3 20-inch pads would be pretty tight, especially down at the foot, because that would be 60 total inches, and there's only 64 inches at the foot. So I bought this tent as a 2-person tent, really, for me and my wife and our dogs potentially to come along with us. So 3-person doesn't really have to fit 3. It has to really just fit 2 in our dogs. Another thing I was concerned about was the peak height. As I've mentioned before, I'm 6'3", so sometimes tents have a tendency to feel a little on the cramped side, especially around the 40-inch peak height. But the pole design on this is so clever because these walls are nearly vertical, because this wall is nearly vertical. the 40-inch peak height, even if I have something like this little flex tail pump hanging up here, I still have plenty of room. I mean, there's a couple of inches there, and then, you know, there's probably maybe even a foot around there if I didn't have this pump. If I scoot a little bit farther back, there's a little bit less room. You know, if I really try, I can maybe have my head touch, but I can set up as straight as I want to without really having to think about headroom, which is about as good as I need. And like I said, I'm 6'3", so sometimes tents can seem a little short, but I slept in this thing the other night and didn't have any issues with my head touching either, or my head touching the head side or my feet touching the wall, and this near vertical wall really does help a ton. As far as storage compartments go, that is kind of the thing that this is lacking. You can see right here, there's this pocket right here and this pocket, and it's mirrored on the other side. So there's really only a total of 4 pockets. I think that they could have done something maybe down here, having another pocket on that side, or maybe even like kind of right here in line with this door. But overall, you know, not too big of a deal. I usually try to keep my stuff pretty organized anyway, so not having a ton of pockets sort of forces you to do that. And the doors are identical as well. It's got 2 zippers, and you can open with one hand, which is nice. Sometimes it gets stuck right here in sort of this round area, but with the 2 zippers, that's nice. And so far, like I said, everything's been great. I can lay in here without really any issues. So let's get the Rainfly on, and we'll go over what I think may be one of the weirder parts of the tent, at least in my opinion. Okay, now that we have the vestibule up, we can move on to the thing that I think is kind of a negative for me and may not be for everybody. I think I might just be a little spoiled from my Durston tent. My sort of solo backpacking tent is the Durston X-Mid 2-person, which I really do like that tent a lot. It is pretty nice. It's very nice, actually. It's very spacious for just me doing solo things. And one of the things that I really like about that tent specifically, the vestibule design is pretty nice. So as you can see right here, this vestibule, this tie is on this side. So if you look right here, this is where the tensioner is. There is a little loop over here, so you can stake it down if you want to. And on both sides, there are toggle points. So on this door, there's a toggle point so you can roll the door up. There's also a toggle point over here on this side so you can roll the door up. The problem that I have is that on my Durston tent, when you are... This door doesn't really roll up on the Durston tent. This stays permanently staked to the ground right here. And then the other door is what you sort of roll up. I know the door design is different, but I got so used to that on the trips that I've been on with my Durston tent, because this right here, this corner, then becomes a permanent vestibule point. Now you can say that could also be the case here, that this is a permanent vestibule point, and sure it is, but it's just not nearly as big, and the door kind of gets in the way. If they would have maybe oriented these doors a bit farther forward and made this be a permanent vestibule point, I think I would have preferred that, but that's not that big of a deal. The thing that I do think is a bit of a big deal is, I mentioned this sort of before, there is no attachment point for this pole, this sort of spreader bar pole, to either the tent body itself or to the fly. So if we were to just, you know, sort of take a look under here, it might be a little hard to see, but there's nothing up there that is holding that bar in place, which means this bar can move around. And it also means that it's kind of hard to get a proper pitch on the on the tent with that bar, because it just sort of does its own thing. But you know, it's fine. It's a pretty thin material, which I'm not too worried about. And there is some venting here. So if you take a look right here on either side, there is some vents with the little standoffs. God, that's hard to do with one hand. Some little standoffs right there on either side, which is nice for ventilation. And because these are dual zipper designs, if you want to, if it's, a little rainy but not crazy rainy, and because there's this extra lip here, if it's not super windy, you can go ahead and just do something like this. There's no spreader bar right there, so it's not going to actually, provide a ton of extra ventilation. In the first night that I spent in this tent, actually in the middle of a thunderstorm, and there was a lot of rain, a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning. It was pretty intense, and it was kind of warm, as maybe in like the high 50s, low 60s, which is a little bit warm, especially right now. It's now April, but I live in Alabama, so that's kind of what you have to expect. And it did get a little bit sticky in the tent. It was a little humid, even with both vents up. With both vents up, there was no rain that was coming through. Everything was totally fine. And if you look here, this is also similar to some other tents, some Nemo tents and that sort of stuff. A lot of the actual waterproofing comes from the fabric of the tent itself. So there's a pretty big cutout, and here at the foot is a pretty big cutout. So it's not like some other tents where the fly goes all the way down to the ground. There's definitely some room there. So if you had some really, really heavy rain that was coming through and was splashing up under, it might be able to drop down and splash up underneath here. But again, even then, there's still a good bit of material right there to kind of keep that from happening. So I'm not super concerned about the storm worthiness of this tent. It seems like it's going to do great. It did perform well in the storm that I was in here recently, though it wasn't super windy. At the ground level, all the wind was really kind of up at the the trees, but it performed great. I just wish there was a little bit more ventilation. So. Okay, finally, we'll round out the specs for this tent. REI advertises this tent as being 3 pounds, 14.65 ounces. That is package weight. And then they advertise 3 pounds, 7.65 ounces for minimum trail weight. Again, that's without the footprint. With the footprint, which is an additional 9 ounces, you're looking right there, minimum trail weight in the footprint as 4 pounds, maybe 4 pounds, 1 ounce, which I think is pretty good. But the pricing of this tent, it can be a little bit, confusing. This is a $500 tent. It's $500, just for the tent. It's an additional $65 for the footprint. So $565 for 4 pounds, or even more than that if you just do the package weight. There definitely are some tents out there in the same price range that are lighter weight. For instance, the Big Agnes Tiger Wall UL3. That is the same price, but it's actually about a pound lighter. Doesn't include the footprint either, so you're looking maybe a pound, maybe 10 ounces lighter for the same price. I went with this tent because looking at the specs, this tent seemed to have more room, and I'm very happy with the room. This is a tent I'm going to be using again with me and my wife, potentially our 2 dogs. And I know I've heard some reports of the Tiger Wall series having kind of a very thin, flimsy fabric on the on the actual tent body, and I didn't really want to have to worry too much about stuff poking through. Now, there's a disclaimer on that. REI does not give any sort of rating or thickness as to what this material is. They don't say if it's 20D or if it's 10D, 15D, or anything like that. So I am taking a bit of a gamble. If this is the same thickness material as the Tiger Wall UL3, then you are essentially just paying the same price for more weight, but also more room. And in my opinion, I'm okay with that trade-off for a little bit more weight, because I am a taller guy. I want something where I'm not going to feel super cramped. I don't mind carrying a little bit of extra weight, especially if it's in the name of comfort. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the tent. I was not sent this tent for free or anything like that. Obviously, I'm a super small channel. I bought this tent with my own money. Had some gift cards, had some coupons, so I was able to get the price down to make it make sense to get this tent. But me and my wife needed a bigger tent for the 2 of us anyways, so I figured I'd go and give this one a shot and make a review on it, because I haven't really seen any reviews on this tent. It's pretty new. It's only been out for a couple of months. It's new for this year, but overall, I've been liking it. I'm excited to get some more nights in, with this tent. And if there's any sort of significant updates or anything like that after a year or 2, then I can always do a follow-up review. But if you have any questions maybe that I missed, feel free to leave them in the comments. Overall, very happy. Everything seems very good quality. Everything's taped and sealed, so I'm not really worried about this being, a leaky tent. And in the torrential downpour we had the other night, I was totally dry. So overall, very happy. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Again, my name's Clay. Thank you for coming back to Terra Outdoor Adventures. Feel free to hit subscribe. I have another trail vlog coming up in the next maybe month or 2, because I have a trail coming up. And then I'll also be doing a review at some point of my Durston X-Mid 2-person tent, not the 2 Pro, just the regular 2-person tent. So feel free to hit subscribe if you want to see that review. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.